Welcome back. Of course, this is the Daybreak Africa, and if you're just joining us, I remain Michael Obagiri. Today we have a topical discussion before us. I will say is a topic that is of interest to everybody that wants the way forward for Nigeria in the educational sector. We'll be talking about the state and of current, I'm talking about the education state in Nigeria, the current challenges and ways forward. And we have a very interesting person in the studio, a public affairs analyst, a person of Kehinde, Emmanuel. A very good morning to you.
Yeah,
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Angela, before we go forward, the last time he was in the studio, we talked about some variable of things. We talked about the labor issues, and he was able to do a lot of justice to it. But then I said he was attacking it as a Nigerian that's really feeling the heat. So I hope he's going to do the same today.
Hopefully he will. Anyways, we know about the challenges that's faced our educational system in Nigeria. Over time, it had to do with the form of payment for the lecturers, of which called for strikes, various strikes, and then moving forward we started seeing the issue of lecturers beginning to leave the country, thereby causing shortages to the system. And we've also seen, I mean, with the new administration coming on board and then removing fuel scarcity, and then we started seeing the issue of tuition increments and all of that. So many other challenges that have been facing the educational sector. So to begin with, there is a recent development where the President Tinubu is pledging to give the university autonomy, full autonomy. So, and many have come out to state that this autonomy has already been given before now, although what kind of autonomy is he asking, trying to give this time? Is it a type where the institutions will be able to carry out all the activities by themselves and they'll be making their own decisions without the government's interference, or the government is somehow going to still be playing roles in decision making? So I would like you to begin with what you think about the state of the Nigerian education system.
All right, thank you so much for having me. I think I will agree with you that the challenge of education is visible to the blind, it's audible to the deaf, that it has been a very challenging one for the country. If you go back to check through the budgetary allocations of that is accrued to education sector, you realize that Nigeria has not in any way met the UNESCO quota. 2020, COVID-19, 2021, we had a very, very low budget allocation for that. Even till now, the 2023 budget was a bit, let me say, fair. I mean, when I say fair now, I'm not saying that it has met, but at least since 2016, that's the only time we have the offshoot of budget allocation, which was about 8.8%. But I hope you know that UNESCO budgetary allocation was designed to be around nothing less than 26%. And there we are. Apart from finances, so I can say that one of the challenges with Nigerian education is financing. Number two is the brain drain, which you lay claim to, that lecturers, people in the academic now, japping, quote unquote, to also look for greener pastures, which we cannot stop, but we can only control, put measures, and that is also the business of government, to put policy in place to also invest, or let me say fund these areas. TED fund, UBEC, because if you look at it, it's alarming if you follow the statistics of numbers of out-of-school children. Maybe because I also run an NGO, so I'm also focused on education. The rate of out-of-school children in the north, just opposite with the south, is very alarming. And I think we will not need to, apart from, I think we need the federal government need to declare a state of emergency on education. It's quite a challenge.
All right, so while you were talking now, you made mention of TED Fund. I understand that the scheme was put together, let's say, 2011, for some reasons for things to go smoothly in the educational sector. Now, you understand the things going on in that sector. Can we say these objectives that have been set aside for TED Fund to realize for educational sector, are they really being met? And if they are not being met, what is really stopping them at this moment?
Thank you so much. I think for TED Fund particularly, I think the budget allocation for them is well captured. But you know that I think my own challenge, which is across boards, across any other sector, is the the personnel cost, the cost that is accrued to the personnel that work in those agencies, you realize that the budgetary allocation for those personnel is even more than the capital projects. All right, that is, for instance, we are accruing 55 billion, for instance, now to the workforce in that agency. All right, while we are focusing on 35 billion on capital expenditure of the universities across the country. So you see that where our priorities lies. So it's quite a challenge for me. So, but to a degree, I would say that TED Fund has been able to do amazingly well. If you go to virtually almost all federal universities, let me say most state universities, most of the structures you see are TED Fund intervention projects. And that's why I say that without TED Fund in some institutions, some institutions will likely not be able to have any structure, whatsoever. So, but if I am to link that with autonomy, what autonomy is not trying to do, what autonomy is not trying to suggest, is that it stems from the place that government do not necessarily have any gain that they get from the education sector. It's an investment. Apart from the tax of the staff, all right, there's nothing else that is coming to the coffers of the state. All right, so let's put it this way: that instead of we trying to give you subventions, all right, because monthly they are giving subventions for them to meet the demands of the institution, whether to pay their salaries. Right, so the schools are their own prerogative; these are their own discretion to pay their salaries. So now, sorry. So now let's stop that. All right. If you guys can generate your money yourself, because the IGR of your school is still spent by the school, it's not coming to the state. So why not let us allow you guys to even use that money for what you want to do with it? Pay your salaries the way you want to. All right. And that is where the issue of the increase in school fees is coming, because one of the challenges with Nigerians is that we don't even wait for the policy to take place. Once we hear the announcement, it has taken place by default.
Well, if I may ask, is this the right time for us to be considering autonomy?
If I'm to be sincere, I don't think it's the right time. All right, it's not the right time because considering there are two major policies that we have been able to pull through, and the Nigerian people are still trying to find their footing economically. The exchange rate, CBN issue, and the fuel subsidy. All right, so those two policies have a very huge effect on the very masses, and I do not think that we should also start with removing autonomy of these institutions. I think the government should give enough time, all right, for that, so that even institutions can also prepare themselves in that regard. Even parents and the guardians can also have that at the back of their mind. Now, I don't think it's insensitive, I must say, because if schools are to be given autonomy and they are to increase school fees, the salaries have not been increased in any way. The cost of price of commodities has increased. So it's more like you say you are trying to save the people, but at the long run you are drowning them. So that's the quagmire of that.
You made mention of if you want to say you don't feel this is the right time for the autonomy to be granted. But now let me refer you back to the situation of the fuel subsidy when it was being removed. Most people felt like it is not the right time. But I want to believe, like, if we want to really wait for the right time, we might not really get the right time. So if you say this is not the right time, but you feel that there should be a right time, now for us to arrive at the right time, what are the things that are supposed to be put in place for the right time to arrive, and what are the things that we are supposed to expect when the time has arrived?
Yeah, the peculiarity of this autonomy now, the peculiarity is quite different from subsidy. If we do let me say an holistic analysis of the subsidy, the Nigerian government, on a yearly basis, 2023 spent about 4 trillion naira on on subsidy. 4 trillion. That is what was the total budget? That's even more than 25% of our budget for 2023 is spent on subsidy. Now, if you look at the effect of that on us as a country, the need for you to remove that is justifiable. All right, on the strength of the fact that we are trying to see that we can block that aspect and commit that same amount of money to something infrastructural development. All right. But now, when you're talking about autonomy, it's not that maybe it's costing us $1 trillion of naira, as it were. All right. What we're really trying to do is just to see that we give room for so the money that we that we budget for education can come up, but it's not go towards the university infrastructure as it were. So now we go to maybe towards UBEC. UBEC will likely be the one to get more of the fundings. I don't know if you understand me now. So UBEC is the Universal Basic Education for primary school, so that is we can focus more on those regions and secondary school, while the institutions are at their own mercy to determine. So now it will not be a competition amongst institutions. The issue of strike, the reason why ASU are not going to accept it, because it is going to collapse union. It's going to collapse labor, because you will not be. There's no need for you to say you want to declare a strike when it is your institution is one that is going to hold your salary. All right. So if an institution now, they are the one that pays your salary, the only time you can go on strike will be in that institution. You don't need to influence it across the country, across states. What would that do is that parents will now say, you know what, I don't think I need to, this school goes on strike very often. All right, then let me pick this private, this state university, or let me pick this federal. And that's what they're also trying to fight against.
Sorry, Angela, before I go, you made mention of something that really interests me. You said ASU are going to fight against this.
Okay.
Now, from what you just said, it makes me want to feel like ASU are not really fighting for the interest of let's say the general public, the students, the schools. They are fighting for themselves, like maybe some people in them. So do we really say, okay, let's just agree that that's what you've just said?
Yeah, I mean, it's just that apart from ASU, other unions, the unions, labor, will most likely, have issue with it. But then certain decisions you must come into play. All right, I do not think actually that I think that is going to be the best thing, the best decision that we should take at this point. But then I'm not saying we should do it now. That the school should be, institutions be able to come up with. But now the government will still play their role. All right, because now how do we play their role now? The issue of the minimum wage. Once they're able to do that minimum wage, what would that do for the schools? The institution will have to increase, because your demand for the minimum wage is now at the mercy of the management. All right, so that your university council now, they are the one that cannot approve. If the government says we are approving 70-something thousand naira, and institutions are saying, for us, the peculiarity of our institution, we cannot go beyond 50,000 naira. That is what they can work with. I don't know if you get me now. So it is now going to be management. So even work will be much more, let me say, competitive. Just the way we have it in USA. Some people can prefer to work in California because of the maybe cost of living, or decide they are paying higher in maybe OU or wherever it is in the same USA, or maybe Illinois. I say, okay, I'll then move. So it now gives people room to, people want where they have higher pay now. So it now gives people. So this school will now try to say, how can we retain our own staffs? Now, it's not an issue of jackpine out of the country. It's now an issue of other institutions are going to take advantage of your staffs if you don't give them
I think what he was trying to say was, you earlier mentioned that ASU and other bodies might have a problem with the decision. So why should they have a problem with the decision?
I think that apart from ASU, even other unions will have issue, because that decision will most likely collapse the unionism, the collective consciousness, just like the one that happened last, that they announced across board that everybody should not go to work. All right, the last labor. Now, when that policy flies, you cannot make that kind of claim, because institutions have been given autonomy. So that is what they are saying, that the power has now been moved from government, it has been moved to the institutions. So that is the union who employs you. You are employed by the university council, all right, representing the state government or maybe the federal government. Whereas the university council is the one that can now approve the salary structure, whatever request you guys are bringing to the table. It's not going to be NLC versus FG again. It's going to be labor per institutions versus the management. So what would that do is that, and once it does that, there will be no need for the place of collective demands has been defeated.
Anyways, if they should go on with this autonomy, we also have the pending issues of their salaries. Some still claim that the federal government still owes them salaries. So if this implementation is actually carried out to the fullest, is there a possibility that this demand will still be met by the federal government, or it's going to be scrapped entirely and everything will be started from the top?
No, it's going to be quite insensitive if the government is going to scrap, because the government is a continuum. All right, whether it is in your own tenure or not, the request must be, you must you must answer to their concerns. Whatever gratuity or whether entitlement that they have, in other words, is justifiable within the context of their demands, it should be met. But the government and the NLC must not just come to, or the unions should always come to an even ground where we strike a balance and see how we can, shift a place for me and shift for me. But then it is something that that must be made by the government. Whether the autonomy comes or not, it is still at the mercy of the government to attend to that request. It's an issue with government. It's not. It's like, let me say, it's a pre-matter that happened prior before the autonomy. So you cannot use an autonomy to justify that it should be bad debt or should be written off. They have worked for it and they should be paid.
All right. I'm going to read something out now. It is recorded that about 2.8 million children in northeastern Nigeria, northeastern places of Nigeria as a country, are out of school children, and this is as a result of insecurity. Now, most time when we talk about the level of education not really hitting the right level that we want it to be, we mostly just divert all our attentions on the financial aspect alone. Now we have issues of insecurity, pushing children out of school. You see, at the end of the day, most of them, they're hawking a lot of kind of situations that are not really palatable happening to them. We have situations like this. We want things to work in Nigeria. We want our economy to go fine, for the education to be able to go fluently the way we want it to be. How do we fix such situations so that these children that are out of school can get back?
Yeah, thank you so much. I like the way you put the question, because anytime we talk about literacy, Nigeria as a country, I think we're one of the least countries with the highest level of literacy, 59%, if I'm correct. That is, that can remain adults that can read and write. Out of school children in the north, with that number, I think it's even more than that now. Security is the peculiarity in the north, but if you come down to the south here, our peculiarity is not security, as it were. The problem is, according to the U report survey suggests that 42% of their respondents claim that one of the reasons why children don't go to school is not even because of the school fees, as it were. It's not even because of security challenge. It's because of the unavailability of parents to procure most of this what they mean. Let me say, procure the necessary equipment for their children: the textbooks, the notebooks, the school bags, uniforms, school sandals, and all these stationary items that is needed for those children. You must understand that one of our challenge also from this side also is the distance. Now, if we talk about security, according to the Nigeria, I think Nigeria also was part of the Safe School initiative. We agreed to that, and Nigeria we are a part of it. What does that suggest? What that suggests is that children should be able to attend school in an environment that is free of attack, free of fear for the children. But the question then is, how do we achieve that if we are not going to fund that sector? Let me put it this way, that for us to reduce the number of school children, we will need not just invest in security. Actually, we will need to work. I think even the federal government was, I think in 2021 now, with the NCDC, that they were empowered to see that they work in the security of schools. But now we need to focus more now on the fencing of most of these schools are not even properly fenced. Most of the schools in the north are not fenced. Do we even have GPS that can track anybody who comes to the school? You remember when they abducted, I think over 5,500 in the year 2014, we abducted out of secondary school. So out of school. So we need to really invest in our infrastructure, and that's why I think and when I say infrastructure security, now I think every personnel, every relevant stakeholders in the security outfit should work together to see that we can work on this. The fencing of institutions of secondary schools should be done. The security personnel should be trained. All right. Our reporting mechanism, right, to respond to things like this also should be put in place. But I think much more importantly, we need to finance the education sector. We need to build schools. We need to renovate schools. If you look at the state of, if you go to Benue State, check out the state of, you see dilapidated buildings, even Ogun State, as it were. So we really, and that's why, apart from federal government, it cannot be done by the federal government, because I know too many eyes are on the federal government. We need to that's why the need for decentralization of power is very important. Local government and LCDs, we need to go towards that, just like the Indian system, and see that those people should be empowered also financially. You are not empowered enough if there's no finance that backs you up. You cannot be said to be a chairman of a local government if there's no money that's appropriated to your office. So, and they are the people that are closer to the people. All right, so we need to also see how we can fund local government and see how we can track let me say tracking of projects. All right, tracking of the activities of these people should also be put in place, and I think by that we'll be able to reduce. I think the president talked about the Obagiri system, how they can bring them into the educational system. We need to go more into technical institutions now, and not necessarily about some of our courses even need to be review of our curriculum is very important. We need to make education fascinating. While people invest more in all these social programs that are total waste of time. I don't want to mention any, but that do not really have any value as it were. All right, we should invest more in educational project that can cultivate the talents of people, talents of students, education, mathematics competitions, STEM related projects should be done, and by that we'll be able to bring teachers should be trained, incentives should be made available, because those are the people at the forefront of these things. So by that we'll be able to reduce the out of school children to a minimal level.
Okay, from what you've just said now, I really want to know what is really happening with the universal basic education in Nigeria right now. Of course, they were set for some things to be done, especially talking about free school for everyone, no matter your ethnicity, your class, and whatever it is, for every children to be able to attain education. At this point that we are right now, what is their state in Nigeria?
It's simple. Their state is simple. They have not met their I mean, with the level of out of school children. Do we think that Daybreak has been able to achieve its target? I don't think so. No. All right, but are they doing what they need to do? So I mean, across board, some of them, they are doing what they can, but there is room for improvement. There should be an improvement in that sector. The primary school, I think that's the basic of every child. I mean, every child should have access to that freely. All right. Every state should, I think, commit to this intentionally. All right, the budget allocation for education should be increased. It's too poor for us to be talking about 8.8%. We need to really increase what we allocate to education, especially UBEC, universal basic education, which should be made free for children. I do not have problem if secondary school is a bit taxed, but I think primary school should be made free.
Well, many of the opinion that Nigeria educational system is a failure, more like. So would you agree with that statement, or you will not agree with it?
Those who said it's a failure might likely have spoken from an emotional standpoint, all right, that which is normal, all right, but I think I've said it before and I'll say it again, is that we must look at the sector as it were, all right, and see that it's not that maybe they are not doing anything as it were, all right, it's just that we know that there is more to be done, and what is the more that must be done is financing. How do we get financing if Nigeria doesn't want to borrow? Nigeria needs to see how they can reduce the incentives that they provide, the subsidies they provide in different other sectors, and see how they can remove that and then divert it to focus on these things. So our problem as a country is quite enormous. The health sector is there, so and there is nobody that can really come and just do an abracadabra and fix this country. But then I think that at the level where we are now, Nigeria really needs the education system needs a total overhauling, from the curriculum to the teachers training across board. We need to really do an overhauling for us to be able to fit into the 21st century system of education, and we can be at par with I believe we can compete with other developed countries.
Okay, judging from what most people say is they talked about when you step out of Nigeria to study, most people give feedback and say it's quite easy for them to assimilate what they are being taught over there. I understand environmental issues too, of course. A very conducive environment can also be a thing. But now, at the end of the day, we have everybody choking down at the neck of the government. But I don't want to really believe, because the ecosystem comprises of all of us, the citizens also. Of course, we have our own parts too that we are really. So you, as a person in the educational sector, talking about a mechanism, it's a give and take thing. Of course, when we talk about private schools, there you pay more, but of course you get lecturers or teachers that are really up to task when handling your children for you. And then when you come back to the public institutions, you don't have the same thing. Now, do you think a mechanism should be structured to be able to get teachers trained, as you have said, and also to always recheck them on their curriculum and what they are giving back to the students?
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that, because although the only challenge I have with your statement is the people trying to the cost of education for those in developed countries is quite high. Even an average citizen of Canada might likely not be able to access university education, and some of them stop at because the student loan is what is available for them. And even Barack Obama paid up his own loan, student loan, when he became a senator. All right, so to let you know that, so one of the reasons why we are able to enjoy some of these things is scholarship opportunities that is open to us. And how does that come in? Because of the two governments coming together to sign bilateral, agreements. All right, so if somebody is traveling to the country, let you know that via scholarship now. So let you know that appreciate your government too, because it's the bilateral signing, between those two countries that has also allowed you to be able to, tap into that opportunity. All right. So even according to the world statistics, Nigeria even happens to be a country where it's even number 4 or number 5 with the level of where it is cheaper to live. All right, across the globe. Now, when they are doing that, they are not using naira to value you. All right, so they are using dollar.
Then I will leave this discussion there.
All right, so but as it were, as you have said, Nigeria really need to beyond this. We need to make education really a priority for us. All right, it should be something that even people from other countries should be able to talk about coming into Nigeria to come and also study. We should also talk about also signing that also countries looking at institutions and see how they can also partner with schools also to get degrees. We can even open space centers should even be what we should be talking about now. Just like Nexford University and some other institutions that are trying to go. I think now is also doing well with that. But I think if we can also go into that area so that people who are even working can also earn their degrees and also still be working. That should be the future of our education. And I think it's something that we should also work on as a country.
You've made so much mention of solutions as to which the government is supposed to adopt in order to help with all these challenges. However, we need to start with something. So what is supposed to be the priority at this time, looking at how things are so scattered and we don't even know which one to begin with, which should supposed to be at the top of the list, and how are they supposed to go about maintenance and accountability, because it is really important. As you know, most of the times we tend to fail with that, but how can they come up with accountability and maintenance when it comes to that?
Yeah, because the reason why I smile is because of the accountability. Because I'm wondering how will I make them accountable? All right, but then I think citizens have their role to play. The Office of the Citizens empowers us, all right, to track projects. All right, I think Follow the Money is an NGO that also does that. So, but even as individuals, we can track what is being done. All right, as regards our community. Okay, but I think if you tell me that I should look at what should we do as number 1 on the list, I might likely say it's my number 1, and somebody else might likely disagree that it's not the number 1. But I think for us to really fix education sector, first thing I think I want us to do personally for me is for us to increase education funding. And that's number 1 for me. Number 2 is for us to work with state governments, all right, to see how we can commit them to being accountable, all right, to investing in education in their respective states. Number 3, then we now talk about security for me, all right. We need to really decisively, all right, deal with the issue of security in our country. Number 4, the issue of training of teachers. Not like when somebody who is angry with Nigeria becomes a teacher, or out of frustration, but it should be something that people who want to be teachers are proud to say, I am a teacher. All right, it should not be. And my parents are teachers, retired teachers, so we should make it very, very attractive. The pay should be better, review of their pay, all right, and the training of those people, retraining and training of those people. I think that's one of the things we can do to make it better.
All right, you made mention of teachers, and somebody said for you to go into an occupation, for you to go into a discipline as you want to do it, you have passion for it. But at the end of the day, what we really have right now, it seems like the major reason that the major passion that we are having is the monetary passion. And at the end of the day, you don't really get teachers that want to teach for the passion of, I love to teach, I love to pass my knowledge to these children, for them to get something from me. For them, learning well is a priority for me. But you just want to enrich your pockets. What do you make of this situation at this moment?
Because I don't know if I can make any situation of it, because but it doesn't have to be only in the teaching sector, even across any other sector. Many people venture into it, and it is when they get it that they even discover the passion that they have. Some of them don't have the passion before going into it. Some of them is experientially, when they find themselves there and they see and they are able to connect with those children. So, but that's why I think you know, our universities of education will need to do more, and that's why, you know, when people gain admission into universities, you will see that some people only pick that school maybe because they could not access one particular institution and they just have no choice. Right? So that is where we need to even focus more on. And I think those schools also, apart from your degree in education, I think there should also be an induction into the profession. All right, I think they do that. I think I know of my institution, OAU. So I think it's something that they can also do to see that people are inducted into being teachers, where they also go through, you know, some exams, right, and training. All right. So by that, you'll be able to see that people who will likely want to go into things like that are people who really are passionate, all right, about teaching. And as I said, the place of financial, I said, there's something that must motivate somebody to want to be a part of it. I mean, I know I will not just want to. Passion is important. Passion is even good, but then even monetarily, motivation is very important. That's why financial motivation also is very important. I so submit to you that if teaching becomes very lucrative and very interesting, more people will opt for being teachers.
But I think we have a problem when it comes to, like, say, teachers who are not up to task, you know, disseminating information to these pupils or whoever it is, probably students who you are, you know, expected to take on. I mean, we see situations where a teacher does not even know how to go about lecturing some students, and so many of these situations playing out. And they, like I said, it is expected that these teachers, before they come on board, had gone through scrutiny. So why do we keep on seeing these situations in our education system? And it is really hampering our education system. If you
if we talk about maybe corruption, you want to link it to corruption, but is this something that we can work on? Absolutely, yes. And as I said, that recruitment, you know, somebody, because is my relative or someone that I know, and he's just looking for a job, and maybe they gave me for 2 slots, all right, to bring somebody. I know the person has never taught anybody in his own life, right? So I recommended the person got there. But the question then is, what is the system on ground in that institution that helps them to checkmate things like that? That if somebody is coming into the system, into the education sector, let me say, for instance, you are coming to the lecturing field, all right, there should be a system that the institution also have put in place. Maybe like a 3-month or like a 1-month kind of training session on how lecturing is being done, how, you know, some schools do it, some institutions do it, and that's why, even private schools, that's why, and that's why for me, if you go to, let's go to our unity schools, the question, you see that we like some of these unity schools because they are full-breed teachers. They are people who are passionate, and they are people who has the education background, right? Not somebody who, on the strength of economic issue of Nigeria, just find yourself there, right? So it's going to be a different book. And as I said, those things we need to put in place. The Teachers Training Institute, all right, the Public Service Commission. There are agencies that are responsible for things like this. And as I said, when they are funded, I only hope that I will not be talking about funding if they are not going to do it, all right? Because the implementation must be put in place, and we must track implementation. We must monitor and evaluate, all right? And I think that we must also put what do you call this thing now? More like a system of check, that if somebody err and did not do this thing, there should be something that should be, I mean, there should be a system where people are being checked if they do not do these things. And if somebody is appointed to do this thing, I mean, let the person go. And for me, that's why I'm looking at all these ministers. If anybody is not doing well, give the person a probation of 6 months. If in 6 months the person is not doing well, I mean, we don't need to, I mean, like, you want to build this country, you don't need to pamper anybody, you know, to score points. Let the person go, the person cannot fix this country.
If we may go back to the drawing board and talking about lecturers as it is, we know that it is more like a culture when it comes to strike for ASU as a solution to their problems, their pending problems with the federal government. But do you think that's actually the right step to take, or the most preferable step to take?
In Nigeria, that's the best.
But so far, even with the numerous strikes that have been held so far, there have not been a proper solution, or permanent solution rather, to their problems. So why would they keep on going for strikes?
Labour could switch between politics and activism, and that's the reason why we have the issue we have as a country. The fact that myself and you have good intention to lead the people does not mean that you can adjudge as regards the matter in view of every relevant stakeholders of the Labour Congress. Right, so politics is a very, very interesting game. All right, it's a divide and rule to see how my own agenda curve could be made. So they have been striking. I'm not sure there's anybody who strikes than ASU. I'm not sure there's any labor union now. But then have they been able to meet any of their demands? Maybe after 9 months, maybe after 10 months, and where the education system is suffering, people are at home. All right, so they know that there are other means of communicating this. They know, but just that they have sustained that as their own best weapon. That is the only way the system or the government can hear us, cry. So let us shut down everything. All right, but the gist is that at the long run, the people who have been affected are the citizens. All right, that's the citizens. If we shut down the hospitals, the question is that a governor doesn't have any business with the hospital, it could be taken out of the country for treatment. All right, your money will still be the one to cover the cost. All right, well then a woman that should put to bed had to be put on there for the next 4 days because we are on strike. So at the long run, we are the one putting ourselves under problem. All right, but then that I think I said this one time, that there are ways to do that, and that dialogue is very important. Dialogue is very important. When you have stretched the boundary of dialogue, is when you now think of strike. It's not something that we just wake up and say we are just shutting down. And I think that we need to also apply wisdom, that shutting down of the whole country doesn't have to be that it must affect certain aspects. I mean, let me say power, for instance. We don't say because we don't go on strike. At least if we are going on strike, let us even still have lights to lights. Let me see that at home and be watching something. Right. All right. So I think it's just what they are. That's the only way they adopt. But there are other approaches which I think they can also adopt. But I think dialogue is very important for them.
All right. The next question I want to really ask you, I'm very sure it's going to be of interest to most Nigerian students that are really watching right now. It's a situation of they usually use this term when you go to the market, or let's say online, for you to do some shopping. You order for something, and at the end of the day, what you order versus what you got. Now, bringing it back to the educational sector, a lot of people will order for, let's say, put in for medicine, and at the end of the day, get a course, maybe biology or geology and something else. You have to just do the course because you don't want to stay home. Most people, with the way Nigerian educational sector is going, I've been home for the past 2 years. I can't stay. I'll just take the course. Now this brings back and boils down to the passion I was talking about. Now you want physics. You are given education physics. Okay. Now you are in the education line. Everybody's expecting you to be a lecturer or a teacher, but maybe you don't really like the course. But because I don't want to stay home, I have to take the course. You become a professional in that field. Now, bringing the knowledge to the student has been a problem. What do you think is the really issue here? And why are the universities doing this? Or let me say the JAMB or whoever is doing it. Why are they doing this? That you order for me, you put in for another course, and at the end of the day, you get something else.
And let me say, personally, if I have to say it from the very top of my mind, I think since the CBT was introduced, I think we have seen a nose diving of performances of students, very poor since the beginning of CBT. I never did CBT. I'm not a fan of CBT. I never supported it. I've never, even in institutions. All right, so it has, let me say, with all due respect to students, that secondary schools, that it has let me say, caused a breed of unserious or serious students. Now, how do you put in for medicine? You must understand that the course like medicine will require a degree of cerebral intelligence. I mean, you must be very sound, right? It's not a place for you to go and test waters. say, can I drink or cannot drink? You know, it's a place where you are. The same goes for law, all right, and maybe for some of pharmacy, all right. So now, what happens? JAMB gives admission, offers admission, but then the institutions are at their mercy to determine the cut-off marks. Now, how many students wrote JAMB this year? There are more than the number of accredited numbers of students that every institution in the country can admit. Let me say, for instance, 45,000 people wrote JAMB. For instance, now the quota that every school combined can admit in a single year is 20,000. Now, what is that? What happens is that, and there's this consciousness of a competition amongst us as people. All right, is that I don't want to stay. I don't want to just wait. Somebody that's beside my house, you know, he has gone. Okay, this one attended OAU. I was also a victim of things like that. Right? The reason why I did not stay home was because most of my neighbor in learning OAU, and even my choice of school also was I was very particular about my choice of school because I want to be able to have a pride to say yes. And I'm coming home and they say from which school, you know, that kind of thing. So, but if you look at the performance of students, all right, across, you realize that most of them cannot offer that same. Let's do a background check. Okay, you scored 180. Cut-off mark for this year JAMB was 160. That's the lowest since recent time. All right, and so that is what you are trying to do. Is that we think in our mind we are trying to help them to get better. At the same time, we are even destroying their consciousness for being diligent. Because if I know that between 160 out of 400, that is below. The 50% is 200, so below average, a 35% performance. That is F. But then you have told the person that the person can get admission. What we are trying to do is that when those people come into the institutions, they are going to even give the institutions big problem. But because you have told yourself, quote and unquote, that education, exam is not the true test of knowledge. I wish we also knew that examination also proves the intelligence of students. But how do you think we can fix this? I'm not sure. I said maybe we want to increase our number of institutions that we have, or maybe the NUCs and relevant bodies increase their accreditation. But I think for me, that there's somebody put in for medicine with 160, that person, it doesn't need to pray. The person cannot get it because the quota given to medicine, maybe they're just 50 students. The competition is extensively high, and it's required. So somebody who scored 275 will get the course and not you. Then we just have to give you something because there are other courses available.
Anyways, we are out of time, but in a minute, I would like you to just conclude your statement on what you think the government and citizens should also do in order to help the situation of the educational system of Nigeria.
I think I will employ for universities, the alumni we should tap into the economy of the alumni for universities, and even for secondary schools. All right, is for us to look into the working together with old student associations to see how we can all come together to build our education system. All right, for institutions, I've talked about the alumni coming together to invest into the education sector. I think, but more my word will be more to government also to see how we can. I want to employ government at the federal level to increase the budget allocation for education, and also build a system of monitoring and evaluating how this project is being done. Also, finally, is for us as a country to look into the security apparatus and security welfare also of the security officers too. And I think that when all of us come together in this manner, and also our students also should read, study. JAMB should take it back to 200. Okay, but then I think that will to help us to get people much more serious.
All right, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much
on the program.
Thank you so much, Mr.
And also thank you to our viewers out there who have always come back to Daybreak Africa. And this is where we'll be handing over our studio down to the Lagos studio, who has a package prepared for you. Till I come with you again, I am Angela Daku.
I always say enjoy the rest of the day, stay blessed and productive. I remain Michael Obagiri.